Hi friends, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Darian. For those of you that might be new, welcome if you are new, and hello to everybody who has been here before. It is so nice to see you. Today we're going to be talking about my reading routine, how to read more as a busy mom, how to read more in general in 2022. I know a lot of you probably have that on your bucket list. I know a lot of you probably have that on your goals for the year to read more in 2022. So let me start with a little bit of backstory. We are super cozy here. It is late when I'm filming this because I have two kids. And so everything I do, including my reading, happens at night. So sit back, grab a cozy drink. I do not have one of those. I need to grab one. We're going to sit back and chat, and hopefully through watching this video you will gain some tips and tricks on how to incorporate reading more into your schedule in 2022. So let's get into the tips. Before we get into the tips, I want to quickly take a minute to talk about what my reading looked like in 2021. If you follow me on social media, then you might know that I had a really terrible reading year in 2021. It is the longest I have ever gone without reading a book. And while I could say, well, I had my second child and all that stuff, it really has nothing to do with any of that, because in January I read one of the first books of the year, and that book put me into the worst reading slump I have ever been in because I just didn't jive with it. So I was in the worst reading slump of my life. I did not read a book from January of 2021 to June of 2021. In 2021, I had the worst reading year of my life, and I chalked that up to just not making an effort to read, not really putting it in focus to read every day and that sort of thing. So going into 2022, I knew I wanted to set a reasonable goal, something that I could easily do in my day-to-day life, and something that would bring back that love of reading that I found towards the end of the year. My reading slump video will be coming out shortly after this one, so make sure you subscribe and turn on that little notification bell so you don't miss anytime I upload, because that video will be coming out very shortly after this one, and I'm excited to bring that one to you in case any of you have the same problem I did last year. So moving into 2022, like I said, I knew I wanted to focus on making reading something I prioritized every day. And there's a couple different reasons for this. The first reason is because I am writing. I did write a novel, and I am continuing to write, not on a daily basis, but on a frequent basis. And one of the best ways to hone your writing craft is by reading, and reading like a writer. So I knew I wanted to focus a lot on reading in 2022 so that it only could help my writing goals. So my reading goal for the year is pretty simple. I'd like to read 2 books a month, which I think is perfectly doable. And I know you're watching this and you're like, how? You have 2 kids. When are you finding the time to read during the day? And that's where the tips come in. So let's roll the tips right now. The first tip that I have, if you want to read more in 2022, is to swap your screen time for reading time. This is something that I did not necessarily consciously, but when I did become conscious of the fact that I was spending less time mindlessly scrolling on my phone and more time reading, I realized how many books I was actually consuming in a week. It might not be realistic for you to say, hey, I want to read more than 1 book in a week, but something you can realistically do is when you see yourself grabbing your phone because you're bored or you have a couple minutes of downtime and you just want to scroll or do something aimless, have a book with you instead. Pick up a book and read a couple pages, and you will be shocked at how much more reading you will actually do when you switch the time you spend on your phone with a book. My first tip kind of leads next to my second tip, which is something that I've realized recently. I am not really an e-reader type of person, and I definitely wasn't the type of person to read on my phone or say like an iPad or a tablet. But over the holiday season, I really found that not only was it easy for me to read on my phone through the Kindle app, but it was also easy for me to access books on my phone. When we went to visit my in-laws for the holidays, I didn't bring any books with me because I wanted to pack light since I knew that we were coming back with lots of presents and we needed to buy a bunch of suitcases for our upcoming move. So I had the Kindle app already installed on my phone, and I also use an app called Libby that lets you borrow books from your library using your library card. It's so easy, you just have to attach your library card and you'll be able to get books from the library on your phone, tablet, e-reader, etc. While we were there, I read 2 books that I got from the library, one of which was You've Reached Sam, which is one of my 5-star reads for 2021. I believe I read that book in a day. And I already had a couple books of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series on my Kindle app, so I really got into reading those, and then that's when I got the 3rd book in the series. And stay tuned if you like all things A Court of Thorns and Roses, because I have a reading vlog coming up really soon for me reading the book, the final book in the series, A Court of Silver Flames. I'm really excited to bring that to you guys, so stay tuned for that one as well. So learning to read on my phone, which I know this sounds silly because I just told you to limit your screen time, but if you don't have a physical book, having the ability to read on your phone makes reading when you can so much easier, especially if you're a busy mom or somebody who is constantly on the go. And what I like about this is that I always have my phone on me. Very rarely am I in situations where I don't have my phone. So I know that if I'm sitting with the kids and they're playing quietly or they're in the bathtub or something like that, I can pull up my phone, read a couple pages, read a couple chapters when I'm laying with my son before he goes to sleep. And I'm getting those pages in, and it's amazing how quickly I'm moving through books just by having them on my phone. Don't get me wrong, I love a good physical copy of a book, and I actually have plans to buy the entire ACOTAR series in hardback form when we get to our next duty station, along with some special edition covers, because I'm that obsessed right now with that series. But learning how to read on my phone really has changed the reading game for me. I've already finished 1 book, and as you're watching this, I'm well on my way to finishing the 2nd. Tip number 3 for reading more as a busy mom or reading more in 2022 is to have your next book picked out ahead of time. The first reason I like this piece of advice is because you might not like the book. I am a huge advocate for not forcing yourself to read a book if you're not liking it. If you think it's boring, if you think it's too triggering to read, if you're just not feeling it, set it aside. That doesn't mean you'll never read it. You might come back to it later. But if you're forcing yourself through this book and it's, really just not sparking that love of reading for you, then it's time to kick it to the curb and get your next one ready. That's why I like having a game plan in mind when it comes to the next couple of books I'm gonna read. The other reason I like this tip is because you might finish your book in 1 day. I know it sounds crazy, especially if you're a mom. It might seem completely out of this world to be able to finish a book in 1 day, but you just never know when you're gonna get into the groove of reading, when you're gonna be feeling like staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning to finish a book, because it's just that so good and you're so engrossed in it. So that's another reason to have another book on hand. And this is, again, goes back to the learning to read on your phone thing. I love the instant gratification of being able to buy a book right away after I finish the next one, or getting one from the library immediately. The 4th tip on my list requires a bit of soul searching and a bit of, how do I want to say this, research, I guess, into what kind of reader you are. My 4th tip is to find out what kind of a reader you are. And what I mean by this is, are you a mood reader? Do you get in really bad reading slumps? What tends to put you into a reading slump? What tends to bring you out of a reading slump? The more you can pay attention to the trends in your reading process, then the easier it's going to be for you to move past things that aren't productive to your reading goals and get back on track to meeting those goals. For example, I am a mood reader. I pick up books by the mood that I'm feeling, and if I look at my bookshelf and there's nothing speaking to me, I will go to the bookstore and get a new book that and find one that actually is speaking to me. I also found that I really like completing series in one go. And if you're a member of the Harry Potter generation, then this is probably a really strange concept to you because you're used to waiting and having time in between books. Anybody who's part of a big fandom, I guess, would have the same. But I really like being able to kind of like read the entire series in one go, which is what I did with Shadow and Bone in the fall of 2021, and what I'm doing now with the ACOTAR series. Another great example of this from my own personal experience is that I know I have really, really bad reading slumps, but then I also have times where I am consuming books so fast that I don't even remember what happened to them. I'm just like on to the next one, which is why I started a reading journal, which that's a discussion for another day. All this to say that when you know what kind of reader you are, when you know what kind of grooves you get into with reading, you're going to be able to figure out a reading schedule that is best for you. And for me right now, that's reading 50 pages a day. And I'm trying to finish A Court of Silver Flames in about a week. So I've upped that to 100 because I saw that I was easily able to reach that 50 page a day goal. That might not be feasible for you, and it might be something that you have to look inward at and say, okay, I need to take a step back from all these, booktubers who are reading hundreds of books in a year and all that stuff. You don't have to read 100 books in a year. If you read one book a year, you're, crushing it. So just focus on goals that you know you can attain and start small, because you can start small and you can always increase your goal. The fifth tip might be a little, I don't want to say controversial, but my fifth tip is that you should read genres that you enjoy. I don't like literary fiction. I spent 4 years of college studying literature and literary fiction. I do not gravitate towards it. I don't want to read it. It doesn't excite me. Same with romance. I don't really like a standard contemporary romance book. I'm more into fantasy, dystopian, and I tend to read young adult because those are the books that I enjoy, I can get into, and I can finish quickly. While there might be books outside of your preferred genres that you are interested in and would like to pick up, that's great. Keep them on your list, but don't force yourself to read outside of your genre unless you really, really want to. If you're really, really struggling, I suggest sticking with your preferred genre and then experimenting with different books in different genres later. And speaking of experimenting with books, I have a free 2022 reading bingo card that's linked down in the description box for you to download and share with your friends on Instagram. You can tag me, you can tag your friends, but yeah, I would just love to see what you guys are reading, and you can, circle X out, put a book cover over which ones you've read, that sort of thing. So if you want that, it's linked in the description down below, free to you, no strings attached. We kind of already talked about the sixth and final tip. That is, don't keep trying to read a book you don't like. If you know you don't like it, just stop reading it. And maybe you just need to put it down for a day or a week or a month and come back to it later. Maybe you just need to scrap the whole thing, try rereading it again at a later date. That's perfectly okay. You do not have to finish every single book that you pick up. And truly, I think that reading goals would be a lot less, this is a hot take, I think that reading goals would be a lot less toxic and competitive if we allowed people to include books that they didn't finish on those goal lists, because you did technically read some of it. Maybe there needs to be like a DNF'd, did not finish category to your goals. Let me know in the comments whether or not you think that not finishing a book means that you just absolutely cannot include it in your goals, or if you think that there's like a tier system that we could start implementing that includes unfinished books we just didn't jive with, didn't like. I don't know why I keep saying the word jive. Leave me a comment if you have thoughts on that topic down below. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love having you guys here, especially I love chatting books. So What are you reading right now? Let me hear it in the comments. I'll be chatting with you guys there. You can also follow me on Instagram and all my social media handles if you want to see real-time updates on what I'm reading and what's coming to the channel, and just, you know, personal things happening in my life. My family and I are preparing for a cross-country move from Alaska to Georgia in just a few short weeks. So if you like moving vlogs, cute kiddos, anything like that, stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.